Hello and welcome to another Orange Coast College mathematics video. In this video, we're going to learn to solve quadratic equations using the square root property. Now, the square root property is relatively straightforward here. If I know that a number squared is equal to a, then there's two possibilities for x, that number x, okay? It either has to be the positive square root of a, or it could also be the negative square root of a. If I take the square of either of these two numbers, either positive square root of a or negative square root of a, then the square will be a. We begin with an example. Here we want to solve the equation x squared equals 7. So using the square root property, what we do is we can take the square root of both sides. But again, that doesn't mean that x equals just the square root of 7. It could be either the positive square root of 7 or the negative square root of 7. So we write that like this. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. But what that really means is that x equals the positive square root of 7 or x is equal to the negative square root of 7. But generally we leave it like this, it's just to make it a little simpler to write. Example 2. Now to solve a general quadratic equation using the square root property, what we want to do is we want to isolate either the x squared on one side of the equation or something squared, x plus something squared on one side. So what we would do first here is we want to move all of the non-x squared terms to one side of the equation. So we would subtract 5 from both sides of the equation. And here we would get 3x squared equals negative 3. And if you wanted to here, you could divide both sides by 3. But what we end up with here is x squared equals negative 1. Now, no real number squared can be negative. There are no real numbers that when you square them will give you a negative number. So what this means is that there's no real solution to this equation. Now that being said, there are such things as complex numbers, and so we can define the imaginary number I as being the square root of negative 1. But that's another video. So for this one, we'll just say that there are no real solutions. So you cannot have the square of anything be a negative number if you're only looking for real solutions. Example 3. Now, we want to solve this equation using the square root property. And we already have this x minus 3 squared term here, so that makes it relatively straightforward. We start by taking the square root of both sides. On the left-hand side, this simplifies into x minus 3, since the square root cancels out the square. Now, on the right-hand side, we have to be careful. When we take the square root of 4, there are two numbers. When squared, will give you 4, positive 2 and negative 2. So it's not just 2, it's plus or minus 2. We add 3 to both sides, and then we arrive at x is going to be 3 plus or minus 2, which means x can be 3 plus 2, which is 5, or x can be 3 minus 2, which is 1. Now you want to check your work. If you plug in either 5 or 1, if you plug in 5, you'll get 5 minus 3 squared. That is 2 squared, which is 4. If you plug in 1, you'll get 1 minus 3 squared, which is negative 2 squared. That is also 4. And that's it. Here's our final example. Again, when we want to use the square root property to solve a quadratic equation, what we want to do is we want to take the squared term and isolate that on one side of the equation. So here we have like a squared term, x plus 1 squared. So to isolate that on one side, we can simply add 5 to both sides of this equation, and we end up with x plus 1 squared equals 5. And now we take the square root of both sides, and we're left with x plus 1 will be equal to either the positive or negative square root of 5. And finally, we subtract 1 from both sides, and so our solution is x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. Now, it's important to understand that is actually two numbers. It's either x is equal to negative 1 plus the square root of 5, or x is negative 1 minus the square root of 5. Again, many times we'll just leave it like this rather than writing all of this out, but this is actually two numbers. And that's it for solving equations using the square root property. This is not one of the most common methods, but it often works very well when the problem is sort of already set up to use it, like this one, essentially when this is already factored to be a perfect square. Anyway, practice this and you'll master it in no time. Until next time, have fun.